all ejector pin marks all nicely gone now out of there. So what we want to do, get our Tamiya extra thin cement, and we want to get this glued in. And what I want to do is I really want to kind of make it nice and sort of gooey and kind of mushy and stuff. So I'm not quite pushing it together. Hopefully you can see I'm making a little bit more of a gap. Okay, just making a bit of a gap, and this is so I can get loads and loads of glue in there. Right, I don't want it to completely seal, I just want to have a little bit of a gap, because you can then really fill it with your Tamiya extra thin. Alright, and then we can just kind of like splodge it in. And what we want to do is just make our two bits of glue here really kind of melt. I'm just wiggling it a little bit, trying to make it all nice and gooey. And we can even come in on the inside, spread it on the inside, because we want to get these nice and seamless, but it is a little bit hard to get in there and sand stuff. So by getting this kind of melting process going on, and you know, trying to bring the two pieces of plastic more and more together, we kind of eliminate those seam lines a bit more. I mean, we are going to fill it and sand it, but this is just kind of like helping the process, like, you know, just a bit of a different type way of gluing. Alright, lots of glue, get it all gooey and ooey and oozing. Alright, and try and squeeze a little bit, so you kind of squeeze a bit of this ooze out. Alright, and that should be good. In fact, surprisingly, that looks really good. Actually, I mean, that is almost looking better than I thought, actually. But cool, bonus. So what we want to do now is we want to get a bit of our green putty. Bring you out a sec. Cellulose thinners, right, because we're not talking a big gap here, we just want to get rid of seam lines. So cellulose thinners is gonna, once I find my little spatula, yeah, I've got it. Cellulose thinners is gonna like thin down our green putty to a bit more of a more spreadable kind of consistency, and it's going to get into gaps, because basically the thicker the green putty, the less it's going to get in smaller gaps. The more we thin it down, the more it's going to get into those smaller gaps that we might want to be getting into, especially probably with this one, because it is smaller gaps. So we want to get it kind of almost runny-ish, right? And we're just going all the way along the seam lines in here. Now I'm doing it this way because actually it's not a bad size air intake, right? And I do think we've got enough access actually to be able to get in here with our skinny sticks and actually sand away at this green putty. So some of you might be thinking, oh no, you've got to sand in there, but I think we've got enough access to do it, so I'm quite happy with using this technique for this. Right, but because we've used so much glue, right, we might want to kind of let this sort of have a good bit of time to dry first. Right, because I mean the glue needs to sort of dry, go rock hard, and we don't want to have any nasty shrinkages, so hopefully, there we go, we'll give that enough time to dry. Now I've just done that with the green putty, however there is one I made earlier which I'm just going to get out. As you can see, we've got a green putty in there, and I just want to double up even more, because the one thing is I don't want to have to come along and sand this and then find I've got seam lines and then have to refill it again and sand it again, right? So I want to make sure that I've got all my seam lines sorted with filler. So I'm just shaking up a bottle of Mr. Surfacer 1200. Okay, Just going to get the lid off, put our little lid on top of our lid, and I'm just going to get the same brush I use all the time with the Mr. Surfacer, and I'm just going to paint on top of our green putty, right, just to make sure we're going to get our seam lines filled in nicely. Right, nice and easy, you know, nice and thick. Don't be stingy with this. Just get it in there, blob it on, more the merrier. Right, because it is 1200, it is quite thin. Right, and there we go, we've just gone in there and we've got all that nicely filled in. But I want to leave that, because I use so much glue, I mean, I'm probably thinking maybe just leave it about 2 days. Right, so it all can properly nicely dry, go rock hard. I mean, you could maybe, maybe you could come back, say, each day and maybe apply some more Mr. Surfacer, because as it does dry, it will shrink. So if you kind of keep applying a bit of this maybe over the next 2 days and keep on top of it, you know, hopefully you can then just have one sanding session on this and that is it, which is kind of like what you want to do, because it's going to be a bit hard to sand in. You don't want to be faffing around, keep filling and sanding. Now I've just used some cellulose thinners to nicely clean my brush so that I can use it again the next time. Right then, and we've got some more stuff to do for the air intake, and I've done it this side a little bit on the tricky side. We've got 5 pieces here. Things are getting a little messy. Let's tidy up a bit. And what we want to do, we've got our 3 pieces here. Now we can straight away glue in, and when you're going through this and you're following the instructions, we've got these 3 holes here, and we have, do you know what, I forgot which number was what now, 1 second. Okay, and then we just nicely apply our 3 little kind of struts or supports or something that is just going to nicely hold our 2 plates up, like so. One second, I've got them the wrong way around. That's it. And the tricky part is to come in and get these bits on, right? So you've got to kind of get in the right angle. But with these little supports and stuff, I didn't really bother trimming them up and everything after, or sanding them up after I kind of took them off the sprue. I just cut them off the sprue and I've whacked them in, because you're not going to see these in a million years, right? So what we're going to do, just to get this on, is we're going to put some blobs of glue where it's going to attach to our little supports, and we're just going to whack this straight in. But you've got to get it at an angle to try and get it so that the supports, you get the supports and get both of them. So you might have to play around with one of them. It is a little tricky, but once you get it, you got it almost. Right, and then basically you come along and do the same the other side. Just put your blobs of glue in where the supports go and it goes in, and really you want to just leave it as delicate as that, right? Because when you come along to add the rest of your air intake, it needs to kind of rock with it, okay, a little bit, so that it actually goes on, and then basically I'm kind of gluing it to this half of the air intake. So just kind of leave it to kind of have a bit of a rock to it, a bit of a play. Try not to kind of like glue it up to the side and everywhere. Wait till you get this on first, and that is basically that, because really what we need to do, we need to wait for this to dry, we need to wait for all this to dry, and then, you know, we need to start kind of like masking up, installing everything then. Right, masking time. Gonna get a bit of Tamiya masking tape. Excuse me. And what we're gonna do, we're just gonna mask the outside of this. Right, and I want to do this for a particular reason of just being able to get around about the size we want. Right, because when it comes to whacking this on the inside, it's going to be a little tricky and a little hard. Right, so we've kind of basically cut that to what is probably going to be about the right size, but we just want to give it a bit of a V to it as well. Right, bit of a V, like so, just like so. Yeah, bit of a V like that to it. And then it's just a case of trying to get this in here nicely. So maybe let's try some little tools, because my finger is just a bit too on the fat side. So I'm just using a spatula here. Right, so I can get that in position, and I just want to try and pinch it down and pull the spatula out. Okay, and it's a little sort of wonky, shall we say, so you want to try and get it lifted up. Maybe just a quick blade underneath it. Right, and we just need to try and push that into shape a little bit. And so that's looking even. Okay, let's just push it down a little bit. So we've got our first bit, and that's going to mask up what we want to be white. Now, I know this might look a little, shall we say, confusing at the moment. I mean, if you look at a reference photo of the actual Tomcat air intake, you'll see the kind of shape I'm trying to make. But as I say, I mean, it's probably looking a little confusing right now. But anyway, actually, I probably need a longer piece than that. Bit of a nice longer piece, and again we want to get that kind of like point just by cutting a little bit there, and we want to get this point to then go to our point on here. Right, but as I say, this is quite a bit of a fiddly bit to do, because I'm trying to get this point to go on the point of our Tamiya masking tape we just put down. So it is rather fiddly, but I think I've just got that. And then you just want to kind of pull this back. Right, pull it back till it reaches about halfway. Right. So as you can see, I'll just do this one side, because as I say, it's kind of fiddly and I don't want to bore you with showing you doing the other side, but it's just getting it to this kind of nice sort of flat top up here, and then you kind of have it so it's a nice kind of diagonal sort of line going on, and then what's basically gonna happen is we come along with our air intake here. So we have this nice white air intake here, and then we'll have this nice bit of a white almost V shape going on just here, and hopefully when you look into, you know, the air intake, you'll see that there's quite a bit of a pattern going on in there, and people are going to be like, how on earth did you mask that up and spray it? How did you get in there? Because, you know, you kind of look at it, I mean, you haven't exactly got much space to play around with inside there. So now you just want to leave it like that for a bit, and I just want to kind of show you how we kind of get this masked up as well as that and whatnot, but I'll show you that in a sec. But I want to go off camera and finish that off. Now, as you probably just had a quick peek at one of my air intakes that I've already just made seamless. Alright, so I just want to now come along and show you how I got it seamless, because I do think you can agree the results are quite good, considering if we kind of compare them both up on camera. Right, you got that nice kind of seam line, all gone, looking nice and smooth, looking like a really nice seamless sucker. So really, this has been left nicely overnight to nicely dry, but what you want, nice skinny stick, and you want the nice coarse side, and then you want something like a flat kind of like modelling chisel, right, nice and metal. And what you want to do is you just put it on top of your skinny stick, and you basically, what you're doing is you're getting the hard metal kind of sturdiness of the chisel that will kind of like nicely push down our mini sanding stick, because if we came in here without the chisel, we wouldn't be able to get that pressure to be able to sand down all our all our filler. It would just kind of like bend, and in some cases you'd probably end up snapping it, you know. So the chisel is very important in getting this sanded, and we're just working through a coarse sanding grit at the moment. Right then, so I've just done the bottom of that. I've still got the top part to do, but I don't think I'm going to bore you too much, because that does take a little bit of sanding to get that done. And plain and simply, nice bit of white. It doesn't matter what white you use. I'm using Vallejo. Come in neat. Right, you come in neat because it is a bit of a damn watch. It is a bit of a pain to try and get white to actually have good coverage. Right, and I'm just putting some white in there, and then I'm cutting to air just to dry it, and then I'm coming in again with the white, and I'm cutting to air. Right, and you keep going until that's all nice and white, but I think that is good enough to kind of just quickly show you now that that sucker there is all nice and seamless, and that's basically the whole thing, and that's all you basically need to do to get these suckers nice and seamless. Which, yes, okay, admittedly, with this particular kit, I don't think you're really going to see your hard work, shall we say, all that well, because we've got these they look like some sort of kind of flow restrictor for the air intakes, and it kind of, this does actually kind of move up and down on the real aircraft, but in the instructions they get you to have this in like an up position, which, because it's in the up position, as you can see, there's not much of a hole to kind of like really kind of look down there and see all your air intake stuff that you're spending all this nice time doing. You can have it in the down position, however, if you have it in the down position, you're going to have to do a bit of scratch building around the sides, because it does look a little bit naff if you have it in the down position. So that's that. What I need to do now is I need to get this one all done, let this dry so then I can mask up these suckers. Time to do some more masking up now. As you can see, we've masked up inside our air intake here, but what we don't want this coming down and biting away at our masking tape, so when we come to try and remove it at the end, we can't move it because our air intake bit here has, you know, bit it down. So we just need a nice sharp number 11 blade, and we just want to nicely and carefully just cut this perfectly where we've got our little bit of a raised area and a little bit of a step, and then we can just pull this out, hopefully, as you can see. Alright, and we've got this nice perfect shape, but I just want to double check and make sure we're not going to bite it down, so I'm just going to pull up our masking tape a little bit at the back here. Hold on. Just getting in there. There we go. And we just do that all the way around, because we just want to make sure that it's not going to bite down. And we shouldn't really get any overspray, because we're going to be shooting at this at one direction, not the band. There we go. And basically what we've got now is this is kind of just flapped up a bit. So when we spray in there, I mean, it's going to kind of maybe hit this flappy bit and not actually get behind it and say, give us a little bit of overspray. And this way, when we put our piece in here, it's not going to bite down on it and, you know, kind of pinch it and we can't get it out. But what we need to do, we now need to mask this up. So, nice bit of Tomcat masking tape, and we can get off a nice bit. Now this is always a bit of a tricky point to try and actually mask up, so let's not get all mega neat and everything. We'll make this nice and easy for us. Nice paintbrush to kind of just push it down. Make sure you push down the corners before you then kind of move it along, because it's always going to be the corners where it's going to stick up. So just get them corners if you can. Now this one has kind of curled on us, so we'll just quickly cut that out and then we'll put it back in like so. And hopefully what you're seeing is we're getting this all nicely masked up like so. Using our paintbrush just to flatten it, well, the end of a paintbrush just to flatten it down, and then we want it all nice and perfect. Well, the nice easiest way to do that is we come in with a bit of a blade, nice sharp blade, and then we can just go all the way along the edges like so. There we go. And what we've got there is now a nicely, perfectly masked up bit of an air intake, but we want to kind of make sure we don't spray all the way down and basically spray all our nice silver down here. So plain and simply, nice bit of cutout foam. You can get this foam all sorts of places really. I mean, really, I think some of like photo etch, some resin, you know, they have this kind of foam in there, so kind of keep this kind of packaging, because you can cut it up to whatever shape you want, and as long as it's just like a little bit thicker than say our area we want to fill, it'll just kind of like push outwards nicely and kind of cover it and like sort of expand and get everything all nicely covered and all this stuff. So that is all now nicely masked up. However, we got to be a bit careful, okay, because when we come to put our piece into the rest of our air intake, we don't want to be biting down our masking tape, because it's going to be a right pain to try and get it out. Because, I mean, you can probably see here, we've not got much room to get tweezers down there and blades and stuff to try and, you know, pull out all this masking tape and everything. It's gonna be a bit tricky. It's not impossible. You know, take your time, but if anything gets bitten down, we're not going to be able to get it out very easily. So now we've got all our air intake nice and sorted, we want to kind of get this nicely down. So first off, we need to get big air intake bit here actually onto our bottom fuselage. Now we want to make sure we glue this all nice, because if we don't, we're going to have gaps. So it's a case of taking your time, doing a bit of dry fitting, which I've already done to make sure it fits reasonably well. And what we're going to do, we're just going to, well, what we could do, actually I forgot to actually do, which is a nice little tip. Get yourself a bit of plastic card, nice bit of simple plastic card, any'll do, and we're just going to cut up some little pieces, right? We don't have to be neat and tidy and all this kind of stuff. These bits are not going to be on show, so let's not get all funny about it. Let's just get it cut off. Bit of Tomcat and cement on the inside, a little bit in 3 different places, hopefully, as you can see. And we just quickly whack them in. Whoop. Like so. Maybe give this one a bit of a bend. That one's falling because we need a bit more glue. There we go. That one there. And hopefully what you're seeing is this will just help glue this into position a lot better. So we don't really want to mess about too much, because I've just literally cut them off big time and then just quickly glued them down, right? No real messing about. So when we come along and we try and get it in here, right, it's just going to help the whole sort of gluing process of just holding these pieces in a lot nicer and better, right? Because it is a little bit on the wobbly side, and it kind of goes a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. So I'm just starting to get this glue in here now, right? And I'm really kind of I want this area here to concentrate on first, because this is always the area that isn't quite lined up, and then you have to come back and sand at it and all this stuff. So if we get this right here, that will save us a lot of trouble, because that's normally a troublesome area for these F-14s. And then we can just work our glue now all the way along the rest of the joint. Right, stop a bit and let's just make sure we're all good, looking good. And carry on. Now if you remember, you know, whoever cut off our piece here, remember somebody kind of cut it there where we've got a little bit of a gap going on there. I don't know if you can see it. That's something that's going to have to be filled in, which is annoying, because I mean somebody else has done that in the factory. I mean, if it was me, fair enough, but when somebody else does it in the actual factory, that is a bit of a pain. And last little bit along here. Right then, so what we want to do, we want to leave this to dry, you know, for a bit of time first before we start running off and trying to fit in all our suckers and everything. A little bit of a mistake that I kind of showed you just, and that was all those bits of white plastic card. Well, actually I didn't check, sorry, but there is actually like these kind of grooves just inside here. And you can't actually get the white plastic cards on there. What I was thinking was that the Hazagari, because I've just built the Hazagari one in 48 scale, and you know, that's what you can do on there, but you can't do it on here, so sorry about that. But moving along, what we're going to do now, we're going to glue in our air intake here now. Now as you can see, all our little masking tape, make sure it's all nicely kind of flared up a bit so that we don't pinch it. And we're just going to nicely slide this in, and then we're going to have a quick check and look down the air intake and just make sure it looks good, and that does look good in there. So what we want to do now, we want to glue it into place. Now I don't want to come along and glue right where this join line here is, because as I say, we've got all that masking tape in there, and I don't want to be gluing masking tape into place or getting it under the masking tape and stuff. This will hold nicely by simply just, you know, kind of put in a little bit of Tomcat extra thin cement just on the sides. It will hold into place. Okay, it's not going to go anywhere, so you don't have to worry about that. Alright, hold on. Got a bit of masking tape just there, just pushing it down. we go. Double check again. Look down those air intakes, right, and we're all good there. Now, I don't particularly like how this goes in, but apparently it is right and it does seem to work. But what we've got to do, we've got a little bit of a notch on here, and we've got to get that little notch lined up with another little notch on this end, and plain and simply it goes in here like so. But let's just get a little bit of Tamiya extra thin on the underside, because we can't exactly get under there so easily, so let's just get a little bit there just to help the glue in. And then we've got it lines up nicely with the two notches, and that goes in, and we'll just get some of this Tamiya extra thin cement just round the sides here. Alright, and then this rests on a little bit of a some bit of plastic here, and I'm just going to put some glue down there as well, and on the other side a bit more. Right, and then we want to leave that to dry as well and make sure that's good. Alright, so we leave that now to dry a bit more.